Hey everyone, thanks for coming. Let's get started. Okay, cold Melbourne morning, overcast, which is beautiful for filming. The light's a lot better, it's not as harsh. As you guys ask questions, remember, make them stand out with emojis or whatever, just so I can see them visually. I want to pose a quick question for you guys, something to ponder that I get a fair bit. And it's not always an easy answer because it tends to be subjective depending on your life and what you've been through. You know, when people give you the three surefire ways to whatever. In terms of going down your own path and things getting better, what in your mind have you guys thought about that would finally give you permission to go your way? People talk about it in a romantic sense, like, oh no, and it's easy to point at society, bad jobs, women, a lot of negative stuff. It's easy to point out what you don't want, and you think, yeah, now I'm being rational. Now I've got my life in order because I know the hot stoves that I won't touch. What will you touch? What will finally give you permission to take steps forward? What will finally give you permission? And I've realized it's very subjective. There can be objective parameters, but say you set up objective parameters, what would motivate you to actually go down certain paths and change your life for the better? Because it's fine to kind of clean out the rubbish, but then what motivates you to sort of, say for instance, the analogy, say you clean your house with the old stuff of the past that reminds you of bad stuff, you don't want it around anymore, you want a clean start, a fresh slate. How do you know what furniture to put back in? How do you know what's you? How do you know what steps to take forward? That's an interesting and personal question. What finally gives you permissions to put handles on these ideas and go down your own path? Because people tell you a lot of glib answers like, you know, find purpose. A lot of them are vague like that. But just something to ponder. You know, what would it take? One of the questions I posed in a recent video, if you won the lottery, what would you do? What would you finally get rid of? It's easy to answer, but then what would you do? Aside from buying stuff, take buying stuff off the table. What would you really do? What would it take? Anyway, something to sort of ponder to help you take those steps forward. All right. Mikkel. Hey, man, were you on last night as well? Mikkel asks, do you think a man can create his own purpose in life, his own meaning, like Albert Camus or Sartre suggested, and an ant or squirrel cannot create their own purpose? Why are we any better? I think terms like creating a purpose and meaning, they can make you feel more purposeful and intelligent than you probably are. They can almost be theatrical. You're almost creating a movie for yourself that you feel will compel you to have a better life, or you've done it already. Sometimes these ways of thinking and talking can give you the feeling of having accomplished something or life being better than before. But the real test is at the end of the day. How good did you feel? What did you do? What did you cross off your checklist? Did you feel good about the day? Because, you know, don't forget Albert Camus and Sartre, philosophers, writers. I find it enjoyable to write, so I feel like I've accomplished something. But if you don't find that activity enjoyable, as in it fills you up. It gives you some sort of purpose, your own subjective kind of purpose for the little things you're tinkering with on paper or whatever you might be doing. If that doesn't fill you with some sense of accomplishment or you enjoy doing that thing, the doing is important, then for someone who's not interested in it, just telling them to write, they're going to be frustrated and saying, well, I can't find my purpose. I'm not finding my purpose. And I can understand that. So it is very subjective. I think the only objective thing is which direction to orient yourself toward that will give you the best chance of finding what fits you. You know, what size sort of garment fits you that you can sort of go into that direction. Squirrels and all that, I think it's kind of based on evolution where we don't have fur as humans. We're relatively vulnerable to other animals. We're smaller, we're weaker, we're slower. We evolved to outthink everything else. And so our brains think all the time. Our brains are always avoiding danger and fictionalizing more than it should to avoid danger. So we overthink. Thus, we didn't create philosophy because we're better, because our brains think much more than any other. You could argue that we think wastefully. I mean, we've created a lot of great things too, but I'm just saying that when you compare us to other animals, our strength is that we overthink. And we've produced a lot with our overthinking, but we've also, especially in this time, overthinking when things are so technologically safe and, we don't have to worry about predators. The structure of society now is very different to hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So that's the negative side of being really smart or being able to think compared to other animals. Throw your questions at me, people. Last night went okay. I think the sweet spot for these things is anywhere between 40 minutes to an hour. Apologies for the long one a couple of days ago where I misread the time, because I usually start these at 10 o'clock. Sorry, I usually start these at 11, and these last two morning ones I've started at 10, just to make it easier for people in, say, the UK and the US, given my time, so we can all somehow cross paths. I know it's probably late for the UK, but given the time for myself and the US and trying to accommodate everyone, this is probably the better time. But yeah, I usually start at 11, and that would make it, I think, I'm not sure, 1 in the morning for the UK. So I started an hour earlier to make it midnight. A little bit better, but we'll see how it goes. Armored Ghost. What are my favorite veggies? Tomatoes. I know they're technically a fruit, but they're in the vegetable section of the supermarket. Tomatoes. My second is whenever I can, whenever I remember. For instance, after this stream, I'll make a smoothie, which is usually celery with a mixed juice blend kind of thing. But straight vegetables, usually tomatoes, and secondary broccoli with eggs. Anyway, Alpha Dog, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate it, man. Mikkel, what's the role of a philosopher? I've watched videos of 100-year-old philosophers who spent their entire life reading books, never venturing into experience itself. Well, again, I think it's one of these things you're compelled and obsessed with. with someone that spends their whole life sitting and thinking, it can drive you insane. And indeed, it has driven a lot of those famous philosophers insane because that's all they did. Because the deeper you go into meaning, especially without making it practical, testing it in the world and seeing, are they just interesting thought experiments and ideas that appear to be true and do resonate and in fact are true, or are there limits to them in terms of usefulness out in the world? Do people find it hard to go to the extremes of these perfect ideas or ideals? And is that all it is when we get on our high horse and pontificate about, like, the way to do this is this, and we try to make this perfect and be this perfect robotic, philosopher, idealistic machine? But really in life, it doesn't work that way. For instance, a lot of guys, when they talk about women, including men, we're human beings and we're not perfectly conscious, always concentrating on doing the most stoic thing all the time. It's mentally tiring. The moment you relax a bit and go on autopilot, your limbic system takes over and you're an animal again. So it's a conscious effort to be conscious and philosophical. The best I think you can do as a person to have it help you is, if you're lucky enough to be interested in, if you write and if you keep expressing these things and you learn to speak better as a result of processing this stuff and being interested, the muscle gets exercised, and then in your day-to-day life, when you talk, you think. You talk, you think. You think better, you talk better. And then your life benefits as a result because you're not always unconscious. You're not always just pretty girl, stick it in and get out. It's, wait a minute. I noticed this. You read between the lines. For me, life is more interesting philosophically. I find it interesting. And then it's more interesting around people. It's more interesting around my life as well. So that's me personally. But if it doesn't make life interesting, I'd say you're, on the one hand, more subject to making a lot of unconscious mistakes. And biology doesn't care. Nature will say, thank you very much for that child. I don't care if you're a single, you're divorced, you don't see your kids. We got what we wanted. But it all depends on consciously how much you care about yourself. And you can argue that nature doesn't care. You're just here to be born, reproduce, and die. It doesn't care. You've lived your usefulness. But if for some reason you think, hang on a minute, before I even consider that, let me get the most out of my life. And I think that's what sometimes people are doing today. Both, especially say women, they're thinking twice, three times. They're prolonging it. They're thinking a bit too long before they have kids, if they really want kids. And then nature says, I'm tired of waiting. It discards you. And in different ways, it discards men. If we do have kids without thinking, or again, say you think too much, you're too philosophical and you want kids, and you overthink this thing because you can't control society. See again, like I'm overthinking this as well, but the luxury of myself is I've never been drawn to having children and family. So the negative side effects of this aren't as bad for me as it would be for a man or a woman who really wants kids and gets overly philosophical and pauses their life while doing this all the time and while traveling and while just being hedonistic in life. I think the best thing about philosophy and introspection is to be as honest as you can with yourself and realize where you don't want to waste time anymore, both in thinking and with people, and lean in the direction that actually bears fruit because you've actually tried in life. That was a long-winded answer. Karu, good morning, man. Smear beer. Do men or women cheat more often, and why? From what I've heard, the research is they're pretty similar. Women are just better at lying. Men are more direct. Even in private, women don't like to even admit it that often to therapists or close girlfriends as much as men. Men, even in public with a stranger, if a guy, they notice it's just one-on-one and the person says, come on, be honest, the guy will be honest. I think that's one thing I'm grateful for in being a guy, is that guys generally just tend to be blunt and direct, more or less, especially with each other, because of the world that we live in. There's nothing else after us. And so we have to be honest with reality. You know, it's going to rain. I have to take whatever in, you know, so it doesn't get wet. I have to fix the leaking roof. I can't just wait. I have to deal with reality in the time in which it has to be dealt with. So I think with women, they don't really feel guilt. They hate feeling shame, and so they don't want to be shamed by anyone, and they can lie to themselves to avoid guilt. They easily kind of slalom around that. They're wired that way that we can't, because I think we're wired in a way where we have to be honest, because if we're not honest, we can't actually matter or have any tactile sense of the world. You know, if the car's not working, I have to fix the car. And there will be a direct guilt because I'm not doing it and the car's not working, and my life just crumbles afterwards because I can't actually act in my life. So I think, and given today, the hookup culture, the vast majority of attention women can get now compared to before, where they had to restrain themselves because there were more social norms, I would, and I'm just guessing, women cheat more, especially now. As in my later years, I've gotten much more honest and blunt, and if I ever do go on dates, I ask everything in a polite, fun way, but to get to know the person. And I am so surprised now the more honest I am, and the fact that I don't care, because I don't know this person yet. I just want to know as much as I can so I don't waste her time or mine. How many women lie? But when we're younger, we don't ask certain questions because we just want to be nice all the time. We don't want her to go away. You don't talk about politics. You don't talk about religion. But those specific things, they're the central aspects to which you can know if you get along with a person. If you're very politically inclined in a certain way, or philosophically, or you've got certain questions about relationships, if you don't ask them, you don't get to know them, because the context in which you have a relationship with someone is political and personal in terms of relating to them as man and woman. So if you don't avoid those topics and just talk about how nice the coffee is, and, oh, look at the weather, and what do you think about stuff? It's that idle chit-chat is a lot of the times your own fault for avoiding it, because you valued the validation of having a partner so much on the first date, and you barely even know the person. So just need to get better at being honest with yourself, I suppose. It sounds corny, but it's true. Human, how's your friend doing? I think he's happy. He's in lockdown with his future bride. He keeps sending me photos about how, you know, look at the breakfast she cooked me. I'm thinking, yeah, that's wonderful. Stardust made a video about Rise of the Life Coach. All the hucksters now trying to play the role of substitute father. Any thoughts? I saw it last night before I went to bed. I didn't see it. I saw the notification. I've saved it into my watch later list. So that'll be an interesting one. I liked Stardust's previous video. That was really good. That was really good. But I haven't watched the very latest one. The one previously where he talked about, what was it? It was about when and I heard this previously with Jordan Peterson. In societies where they're more egalitarian, people tend to, which egalitarian means like life is easier, more liberal, like we've had recently, people choose more towards their nature. That is, women choose to do, they don't go into STEM. They don't go into subjects that they don't necessarily like because they're thinking ahead. So the more egalitarian a society is, the more people act in accordance to their nature. That is, men will pick subjects that they find more interesting, like thing-based subjects, and women will find people-based subjects more interesting. So they'll get into, therapy, things to do with, whether it's being a doctor, maternity, things like that, but just basically more social things. And how we correlated that to women's nature in terms of dating as well. When you make the market very free and open and easy to have sex, you can actually see what women will choose when they can have as much choice in terms of exploiting their sexual power. They tend to, which probably leads into that other question that was just asked by Smearbeer. Given today's environment, I'd say women cheat more. I've actually experienced a number of times now, as I said, I'm honest more and more when I do go on dates, how many women that they might say on their profile, I'm separated, they're not. They're looking to monkey branch from their husband. They're not divorced yet. And separated technically is not divorced yet, but they give you the perception like, oh, it's on its way out, we're not living together or whatever, but you find out they might be living together or they're in open relationships. So the monkey branching aspect of hypergamy comes into play. So that was an interesting aspect. That's a pretty good video, but I haven't watched the latest one, no. Alpha Dog, only 5 p.m. in Northern California. NorCal, I'm assuming that is. Remember, people highlight your questions, bracket them with emojis or a lot of symbols so I can see them. Arch, when we get the freedom we have wanted, it's hard to deal with. We talk about how we would do this and that, but the purpose we had of being a career meant we didn't have to think about what we want. That's true. When you just conveniently do what everyone else, like the script is given to you, it's kind of like, if you don't know if you want to cook, if someone hands you a simple recipe, like a 4-step recipe, put in the eggs, put in this much water, you go through it and the day is done. I look at a lot of guys who, if I'm driving home, they're mowing the lawn, they're at the supermarket with their kids, they're talking. You could tell they're going, for me, it's a monotonous routine. It's an unthinking routine. It's a life I wouldn't want, especially when I look at their partners and so forth. But all their time is taken up by a comfortable routine. And because they love their kids and they love their families, it's easy not to think and not be interested in much else because you're too tired to think of much else. If you don't have that, you feel like your mind wants to be occupied. Your day wants to be structurally occupied. And the traditional role, structurally and mentally, takes up a lot of your time. In fact, it drains a lot of your time. You don't have time for anything else. How many people don't think about their health? They just kind of plonk down on the couch after they've done everything that's necessary for that kind of more traditional life. Work, sleep, family, eat, and they're spent. And they go to bed, rinse and repeat. And they try to fit in living on a Sunday, but all they're doing is decompressing, really. They plonk themselves in front of the TV, they watch football, they go to the pub. You could say that's living, but I'd say it's re-energizing their batteries or decompressing. But if your life isn't being depleted in that way, say for instance mine, then you're left with, I'm not as depleted. I need to nutritionally, for my own sake, in my own way, use my brain and my time for a purpose other than the autopilot of nature. So that's a subjectively different and challenging thing. But I just can't. I don't know why. Maybe I'm not going to say I don't know why it is, and it is my fault in a lot of ways, where I'm just resistant to just closing my eyes and just picking whoever I can tolerate and having a family. Do I want it? Nature says, I don't care what you want. What about the dangers, even if I do like her and I want to just say, okay, I'll give you what you want, just shut up and then you'll leave me alone and then I'll get on with my life. Yeah, but you can't ignore the very real things that not just may happen in a very rare case, but do statistically happen. You know, men tend to lean towards numbers more than women do because women don't need to. They don't have to wear the brunt of not looking at the numbers. We do. Ignore the numbers to your own detriment, gentlemen. I mean, a high probability of something bad happening doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. But, you know, that old adage of, I think Coltrane mentioned recently, it's like playing Russian roulette. If someone said, well, you know, with this revolver, there are only there are 4 bullets in this 6-shooter. You know, you've got a good chance of not being killed. Would you still play Russian roulette? And the answer is no. But even more than that, like a rational person is, why take a massive risk? It's not just that if marriage doesn't work out, you skin your knee. Well, that was uncomfortable. It's like a mini death. A human being doesn't like to feel that much acute pain at once. You know, that's the thing. So even if it wasn't playing Russian roulette with a 6-shooter and 4 bullets in the chamber, even if you thought about it as you've got a jar with 100 jelly beans in it and only one of them, and I'm being generous, only one of them is poisonous, how many people would put their hand in the jar and say, yeah, I'll play that because jelly beans are really tasty? Most people would say, I like jelly beans, but not that much. What's happening today is, you know, 30 to 40% of the jelly beans are poisonous. It's like, F no, man. Like, forget that. I'm not insane. Do I look like an idiot? Like, jelly beans are attractive, but they're not necessary. Not personally for my life. For biology, they are necessary. But you know what I mean. Chojalison. Philosophy is not philosophy without practice and purpose. Philosophy can be philosophy without it. It can, but to me, it's just it's a mental exercise. It's kind of it's like armchair philosophy. For me, philosophy that leads to ethics, which ethics can't be ethical unless they're practiced. That's the important thing for me. When philosophy leads to ethics, that can lead to sorting your life out and being happier than you were because you know how to structurally use philosophy through ethics. Pavel, have you traveled the world? Not very much. In your view, is there a country where it's easier to live for a single man, or are all countries are like that? The West is kind of seeped through most countries, but basically the less first world, the less Western, the better chance you have. The countries that speak less English, just because the West's feminism and socialism and all that kind of stuff hasn't seeped in that much. But yeah, that would be my suggestion, not suggestion. That would be my view. See, watch what you say, people. Be aware of how you speak. Mikhail, do women consider the number of sexual unions you had as something that increases your value as a potential male? I don't know. It doesn't bother me, but I never hide when they ask me anything. I'm actually, for good or bad, I have this impulse, if you haven't noticed, of being open and just letting it all out. because I have a real unease of putting on a mask, not saying what I really want to say, not asking questions that I really want to ask. Of course, I'm not going to be rude. I'm going to have tact. But when it comes to that situation, when you're dating, that's where I have this instinct where I can just let the floodgates open and ask anything and talk as much as I want and be who I am, because I want them to like this. If they don't find this attractive, and my questions and my interest and curiosity and interest in them, because I'm asking about them, but for my own sake as well. And conversely, I'm happy to be asked any questions by a potential mate as well. That openness leads to more trust, leads to seeing if you actually like this individual. I don't care. I've never, because of my attitude in that way, I've never been nervous on dates, simply because I'm really eager to get to know the person. There's no fear there because I don't like that uneasy feeling, so I want to let it out. I can't wait to meet the person to sort of find out if they're going to let things out and I'm going to let things out, and we're going to be like this. And if it's not, I want to get it out of the way. I don't want that on my brain anymore, the potential of a partner. I like the reality of a partner more than the potential, which is why I don't like dating. I like having relationships because they're more stable in my life for as long as I've had them. I don't like the nervous merry-go-round of having women on the go and continually dating. It's not really because I have anything against guys who want to be bachelors like that perpetually, but I just don't find women in relationships that important. For me, people are getting hung up almost like on a shopping mentality. They're dating like women are shopping. I'm talking in terms of guys. And women do it too because they're used to shopping, but guys who get off on perpetually dating, and they sometimes say, well, it's because it's so dangerous out there. Well, if it's so dangerous, like, it's more dangerous to keep pumping and dumping because you don't even know that person, and you're increasing its chances just by the frequency of all these potential nutcases that you haven't even known past the first couple of dates because you discard them. You're not really interested in anything else. Yeah. But no, I haven't really had any women had any problem with the amount of sexual partners I have, but maybe it's because I haven't really cared about their reaction, or the ones that did probably didn't want to see me anymore. I don't know. I'm not sure really. John asks, I was wondering what DAW you make music on or what synths you use. Sorry for the random question. I know it's a bit different from the stuff about women and self-actualization. I welcome it. I don't like, not that I don't like, but it kind of gets boring, the same kind of questions about women. I like questions about men if they are related to how you think about life in terms of women. I like those questions because you're thinking about yourself. But as long as they're interesting questions, it's fine. Tech questions, yeah, I'm a tech junkie. So any tech questions are a welcome little dessert, apart from the main meal of women, relationships and stuff, and life and stuff like that. But the main meal is important. Okay, the DAW I use is FL Studio. The synths I use a whole bunch. I can't remember off the top of my head what synths I use. Let me quickly just open up. You probably heard that. Okay, all right, for most of the cinematic stuff I use Labs. They got great synths, and they're free VST synths of really, really detailed orchestral instruments like violins and things like that when I'm making the cinematic sounds. So I highly recommend the Labs VST plugins. And for general sort of more electronic music, I use things like the VST plugins. I use recently Genesis Pro. That's pretty good. That's really cheap. Although I don't think technically it really grinds on your system. It really strangles your system. I don't think technically it's great, but the sounds are fantastic. And what else? Sprite Serum's great, but it costs a lot of money, so I haven't sort of splurged on that. But they're the main things I use anyway. Kenny asks, I struggle to escape from the red pill rage. I want to reach the stage of acceptance and move on with my life. Do you hang out with friends? Do you have a social circle where you can get out? If all you do is absorb material that feeds the rage, if all you do is watch videos where guys keep responding to stupid articles in the media or how dumb women act, then you're just going to feel more rage. You're going to feel more anger because, there's a lot of that out there. But if it's not helping you learn something positive and making you go, oh, aha, calmly, and I've learned this. If all it does is become a video game, which a lot of this stuff is online, and I've noticed that you look at the most popular channels on YouTube in the manosphere, it's just pointing at what gets you annoyed. That's all it is. There is not much philosophical progression forward. There's very little going your own way material. It's all breaking out of the gates of Shawshank and yelling at the injustice, which is, objectively correct and necessary, but sort of just stuck at the doorway. So look at the material you're consuming as entertainment, and it's probably having the same psychological effect on you as sort of pornography, but in terms of, I think it's deeper. And it can embed itself a lot more, because with pornography, it doesn't stimulate you as much if you're not visually looking at something that might stimulate you. This stuff has a lot of residue. If you look at a lot of angry stuff online, the residue of anger and nihilism stays with you even when it's not in front of you. It's very dangerous. So look at what you're consuming. Look at the time you spend around people. Do you spend enough time? So the time you spend consuming material or the people you're around, that's a relationship you have. And that probably contributes to how you feel. Not probably, does to a large degree, unless you've got some sort of chemical, biological thing that's happening with you, in which case I would get help. But generally, take a look at the time you spend consuming a lot of the gotcha material, because my channel's not that important, not that popular. People like gotcha material. People like talking about how dumb the opposite sex is and how smart I am. You just look at the videos. You look at the channels who have got the high numbers. Even the things I have to do to sort of just keep my channel alive, because it's not being fair. My stuff doesn't get attention because it's not clickbaity. I have to, for me to actually, I know the things I'd need to do, which are ridiculous. I would need to make thumbnails that have my face on them going, pointing to some stupid heading for the algorithm to say, oh, that looks like a commercial channel. I'd need to really do stuff that provokes people, like a lot of manosphere content does. And that's why it's popular. And what it does with the content creators, sometimes, I'm not saying all of them, they might enjoy doing it, but it's like, oh yeah, see, men need this. It's popular because men want it, but it's popular because there's a lot of men stuck in the cycle of just the anger cycle and throwing stones at, like, look at this idiot, like LT. But if you don't talk about things in the going aspect of going down your own path, if you're always stuck at the sort of precursor to that and you don't learn anything, you're just always going to be angry. Look at the material you're consuming. Look at the people you spend time with, do you? And what are the quality of those people? Real name's not given. Is honesty the cornerstone to the human condition, or is it the lens we see through? Honesty is courage too. In today's world, we're being conditioned to be more fearful, so more and more people are less honest. More and more people are compliant to whatever they're told to be. Nomadic Man, a question for Spetsnaz and Human. Do you have any ideas as a 40-something for breaking into one-on-one mentorship opportunities, avenues with younger men in their late teens and 20s? Actually wanting to break into that, I don't. Probably Spetsnaz would. I'm happy to talk to young men, old men. I don't actually want to specifically talk to mentor any particular age group or anything like that. Perhaps Spetsnaz has experience in it. I don't have any particular advice for wanting to target that age bracket, though. Sorry, can't offer anything constructive. Smart guy, we can co-opt our biological purpose to reproduce and instead luxuriate in enjoy life as much as possible. We can choose to free ourselves from their shackles. And okay, that wasn't a question. It was just a statement. That was sneaky. You bracketed it. Mr. Wright, do you believe life is a game? In a certain way, yeah, it is. You don't have to look at it as a game, but in a lot of ways it is. Does Australia have burritos? We do. Alpha Dog, have I heard of the book Against Empathy and the Case for Rational Compassion by Paul Bloom? No, I haven't. It talks about how being overly empathetic of all sorts all sorts of issues arise. Yeah, having too much empathy in a world that's kind of has been trained to sort of walk all over people just leaves empathic people on the back foot. You need to have boundaries if you're going to have empathy. That's a trick when, as a man, if you are interested in women, there's that trick of having boundaries around your empathy, knowing your limits. In the past, you didn't as much because there was social structure that would kind of mitigate a lot of those fears for both sexes. Mark, do red pill men have an obligation to help society if things go south in the coming months? I don't think they have an obligation to society. I think most of them have an obligation to themselves first and foremost. And whatever's left over after you help yourself, you should, I would offer and give to others. But give it to yourself first. Armored Ghost, do you think society is larger than what it was meant for? Hang on. Do you think modern society is larger than what was meant for human beings? Probably. Don't they say that functionally the best societies are around 100 people? Below that, it's less stable. Above that is more stable. And we've gone way, way, way above that. So, yes. Brad, put your thumbs up and promote Human's channel. Yes, please. Subscribe. Share the videos around, all that stuff. I'm not trying to sort of be commercial, but if I don't do some things that are corny that I wouldn't have otherwise done, I want to do as much as I can that doesn't affect what I'm trying to convey in my channels and the kind of videos I like making. I don't want to make it corny, but I want to do the minimum amount that still gets it seen and promoted. My content, it's not easy for them to put ads on because the kind of people that think aren't sucked into advertising as much. Content that makes you think a little bit. Basically, it's the least useful for advertising. And unfortunately, if I don't put advertising, they promote my stuff even less. So, and then, like I said, I don't want to have to put stupid thumbnails on my videos that look ridiculous with my mouth open. So the minimum amount I can do to make the quality of my work stand out, even if it's kind of a little bit commercially without, taking away too much, I'll do. But the more you guys can help promote, make sure you're subscribed, hit that bell icon and select all. I hate repeating it. Sounds like I sound like a commercial machine, but because they keep unsubscribing people, that's why I keep reminding people, because people think, I'm subscribed. I might like human stuff, but they think, oh, well, he hasn't produced a video this week or for a few weeks. And then you kind of forget about this stuff, even if you wanted to watch something from me. And share it around social media or wherever, word of mouth. Feel free. Mr. Ryder, humans using their egos when they always want to point out that they are right and others are wrong. Probably. They're also probably testing people to test if they can trust somebody else. Real name's not given. What's your view on Stardust phrase, advice is the worst vice? I wouldn't say it's the worst, but I agree with the sentiment because you're telling someone what to do. Most people can't even make themselves do what they know is right, let alone you pontificating to someone else. Like, I'm not perfect, so what gives me the right to tell you what to do like a god? So I'd agree with the sentiment generally. I think the best way people are helped is if you offer things to them, you listen and converse, and then they work things out themselves. That's the way you can better your life going forward as an individual without needing someone as a crutch all the time. It's what good psychologists do, where they don't tell you what to do. They get you to think and open up and switch your own light bulbs on. Wet Palette Warrior, do you believe censorship of MGTOW content is about protecting women's sensibilities, or is it more sinister, delaying a man's awakening until after he has been made a slave? I don't think it's that theatrical. I think today women lubricate the financial markets frequency of spending and things like that. Men save. Men will save up, buy the car they want, and they won't really buy cars that often. But the more you can make people buy frequently and spend every single day and throw their money away and not worry about survival, and that kind of thinking is more to do with women. That's why they want women in charge. That's why women are running the show. That's why they're puppeteering the morals of society. It's not, I don't think it's anything as nefarious as sort of delaying a man's awake. We're not that important, gentlemen. That's why I say you need to be important to yourself. In terms of biology and society, we're not that important. For every one woman you can, I'm trying to think of the words so I don't get sort of highlighted. You can destroy 100 men for every woman. They don't care. That's why the instinct to not care about you. That's why I keep saying care about yourself. Others won't. Then, when you've taken care of yourself, help everyone else. Help the world. Brad, do you think that feminism, communism, BLM, blah, 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 are connected and pushed by the same people? There's cross points. They're probably like a lot of the similar kind of people fund it. Governmental businesses, top of the pyramid kind of thing. But again, all this stuff, avoiding yourself and focusing on all that will just keep you impotent. I'm not discounting that some of that exists, or a lot of that exists. Armored Ghost. Do you think humans are supposed to be monogamous? I think a human being's life has more tranquility in it when he is monogamous if he wants to be with females. I'll leave it at that. And older values, whether or not you want to say, well, that really wasn't showing you whether the woman loved you or whatever, structurally, where nature would have its way and it'd say thank you, and I would also enjoy and say thank you to older ways of relating socially, and the structures we have would be good enough in a lot of respects for both nature and you as an individual to the degree that you were. I don't know if we're supposed to be, but I think life is better when you're monogamous. I know with me, again, it's up to the person. This kind of whole alpha thing these days, I don't want to get married because I want the freedom of spinning 10 plates. It's like, how important are women and sex to you, Jesus? Like, you hold up, it's like a lot of guys hold up someone like Elon Musk, and it's like, yeah, see, that's men, that's us, that's what we can do. Meanwhile, all you're doing is spinning 10 plates. It's kind of like a guy putting on a superhero cape and saying, look at me. Like, just admit to yourself, your life is focused on women and sex. Sorry about the rant. How do you keep your NSMH, how do you keep your mental performance at its peak, and what is your approach when you are trying to come up with creative ideas? I try to be as honest with myself as possible because I have a big creative bent. I express that honesty through writing and tinkering and playing with a lot of creative stuff like video and audio and stuff like that. Creativity helps because I need to sort of inject my creativity with something, with creating some kind of content. And philosophically and writing and all that kind of stuff helps me populate my creativity with content. So the more honest I am, the more I'm interested in this stuff, the less I have to really try and come up with anything. So that's the approach. Stop hiding what I want to do and who I want to be and what I want to say. Then you'll figure these things out. Sometimes you just bump into them like furniture in the dark, but you won't do that if you don't move. Mr. Right, I settle for a woman and dating can be a risk. Yep. Alpha Dog, Mac or PC? PC here, Mac at work. Sal, I have no idea about what monitor for a MacBook Pro. I'm not that versed with Mac. I use it at work, but I just use whatever they've got. More of a PC person. But having said that, I'm not really know PCs that well. Boffin, based on your life experiences, do you think women tend to be naturally contemptuous of men? I do, but I think it's largely because of their passivity. They've got that, they say it's penis envy. It's more of an envy of men's ease of just being interested in the world and being tactile and being honest. They can't consciously perceive it, but they're contemptuous about they think we've got it easy because there's things that necessarily we probably have it easier in terms of how we act, because it's the only way we'll exist in life. That's the only way we're noticed, and we're trained from a very young age. Our biology is wired that way. So it seems easy from their point of view. I think that's why they're contemptuous of men. There's part of them that knows that men are self-sufficient, and when, post-apocalyptically, women aren't. That's when the real test is. And I think that's kind of under the surface. No matter what you dress up as, no matter what makeup you put on and what girl power slogans you say, when the lights go out and you're alone, I think compared to men and women realized the existential dread of what they are and what they are not, simply by their feelings, because their feelings are pretty much most of what women have got to process, whereas men have also got the basis of tactile reality and logic and other things they're interested in. So I think their contempt comes from their perspective, how easy they think we've got it, because we don't tend to struggle against the things they do, especially mentally, because we're not as passive as they are by nature. Do I like chicken more than turkey? Probably, but also is that because chicken's more readily available? They don't offer turkey that much in supermarkets and in products. Chicken's everywhere. Armored Ghost, what's the sexiest version of Linux? I'm not that into Linux, but from what I've heard of friends that use it, is Ubuntu. Looks pretty good. I've used it once or twice. Mr. Highway asked, in societies like Japan and Korea, men and women have walked away from dating. It doesn't seem to bother them that much, though. Why are Western men having trouble letting go of that part of life? I think in those countries, they went to such extremes of working rigidly that, especially in Japan, from what I've seen and heard of people, that today's generation, their fathers, say in the 80s, where Japan was the technological giant, where basically families lived in companies and families helped set couples up, and even they'd pay for honeymoons. Basically, you lived at the company. You spent all week there, and the company was almost like the umbilical cord to your life. It provided security, but you worked so much that they even had a term, the term escapes me, but there's a Japanese term for working yourself to death or having a heart attack on the job, pretty much attributed to men who work themselves to death. So I think that the last couple of generations, the fathers who have worked themselves to death and seen that this was a wasted life, what did I work for? I was stoically disciplined and proud of being just this worker, a workhorse. And what did it get me? A wife that doesn't love me. I don't know her. I've never spent time with my children. I haven't been a father. Don't do what I did, son. Find something else. Have more of a balance of life. Or the children have just looked, because children are pretty big sponges when they're young, and they observe their environment like their family, and they go, yeah, I want to replicate that, or no, that scares the hell out of me. Look, I'm sure, for instance, myself, when I was growing up, what I observed, without going into detail, I didn't like between my mother and father. When I saw other families, I didn't like what marriage was. It didn't seem like a warm place to me. It seemed cold and argumentative. And so that's a big impression on kids. So in Japan and places where they don't see their father, or they feel sorry for their father, or there's just an empty feeling of being at home with the family, if it's not warm, why would you want to create a cold place? People want to create a better place. So I think that's what's happened in places like Japan and stuff. In the West, it's kind of been a slow up and down, complicated, weaved in and out, where you can't kind of grasp what's good, what's bad, because in the West there's a lot of hedonism combined with a lot of push towards making a lot of money. So they've tried to, there's kind of one obscures the other. and it kind of goes in and out. Whereas in monocultures like Japan, where it's very, very focused, like men do this, there's one path, women do this, there's one path, and then the resulting generation go like, no way, I'm not having that. I don't like what I was imprinted with when I was a kid. I want to do something completely different. It's not attractive. Whereas in the West, it obscures a lot, I think, from the imprinting of a child. A child is very much grows up uncalibrated, not quite sure what they should do. Smart guy. Once you take sex out of the equation, how many men can honestly say they had a lot of common with women enough to sustain a lifelong partnership? This is the problem, I think. I agree. That's why I say treat women like a friend. Go on dates looking to meet a friend. Don't hold yourself back in asking questions. Don't hold yourself back in being as open as you want. Because if you want them to reject you, better they reject you for who you are. Better them to reject you for your intellectual curiosity and for you getting everything off the table to make yourself feel better. Who cares how they feel? Like, be civil and kind and everything, be interested, but around women, treat them like friends. Take sex off the table and life will be a lot clearer for you. But yeah, I've seen too many men that have been married to women, spent 20 years with them, and once the kids are grown up, they divorce because they just can't stand each other. They don't know each other. And especially during these times of lockdown, there's been so many divorce applications because the simple fact of being having to spend time under one roof for more than a couple of hours, for more than an hour at night and maybe half an hour in the morning before and after work. Now they actually have to be under the same roof and forced not to be able to go anywhere. You can't go anywhere. It's like, oh my God, I don't like this person at all. I want out. Don't waste your life. I can't imagine wasting my life with someone and ignoring the fact, and I've heard people say to me, don't look too closely at women human. If you want me, if society's pushing me to spend virtually all my time with women, and I only have the scraps of time that sort of that gynocentric life affords me, then wouldn't it be better if I actually want to have children and a family and to spend my time, and even at my age, like, I'd like companionship. The more I can be stubbornly honest with who I am, we'll weed out who's not compatible for me. And if they're not compatible for me, great. I like my own company on balance of whether I'd prefer to be alone or with someone that's not for me or completely wrong for me. I'd much rather be alone. No questions. It's not kind of like let me think about it. It's completely, I don't need to think. So be honest, because there's too many people that just jump off that cliff because of sex. SB26 human, during your initial red pill awakening, did you struggle with accepting female nature? Yes. Realizing the lack of sympathy and understanding females have for males is still hard to accept. Yes. I think that's the main awakening, is realizing the lack of empathy from women. I knew, because my mother and my sister growing up were very kind and nice. They had their roles as women. I had my role with my father and my brother as men. And there was a lot of cooperation, empathy, sympathy for them, taking care of each other, treating each other with respect. I went into the world with that nailed into me. And all through my 20s, it was just like kick in the stomach. Like, how many times are you going to have faith in women being like your mother and your sister? No one's going to love you like your blood. Your blood tries to give love. A lot of people out there, they just want to get what they think is love. A lot of people out there are just shopping for products in the form of human beings while convincing themselves that they're looking for love and they're interacting in love. Smearby, should there be more male teachers in elementary primary school? Yes, but then they're hamstrung by the rules by which they need to conduct themselves as well, and the distance that men need to be away from children. You know, on airplanes, you can't have a man sitting next to a child because apparently we can't be trusted. So I agree, we should, but yeah, you can have as many men as you want as teachers, but if their mouths are covered and their hands are tied and there's only a script by which they can teach children, like, I suppose at the end of the day, they'll have some sort of male role model, so that's better than nothing. It's kind of the Harry Potter version of bringing literature back to people in the form of men, back to mentoring young boys. Red Pill Tokyo, hey man, how you going? How about how many pictures do you have up in your room from the view of the stream? You got quite the collection going. Also, it looks like your numbers are going up again, so it's good. Yeah, in the last, firstly, that is purely visual. There are a lot of postcards I've collected over the last decade here and there, although they don't actually give them out that often, but I consciously put them up as a visual backdrop to this to make a place if I'm going to film some sort of videos, whether they're streams or my usual talking head edited videos, just make the framing visually interesting. So it's a conscious decision, but also it brightens up the room. I like that kind of arty studio look. But yeah, my numbers are going up because I've been killing myself in the last couple of weeks trying to produce content. Slowly going up, but I have been hovering around 49,000 for almost a year now. It's really frustrating. Whereas I see channels that have a XX chromosome that started off at the start of the year that I follow because they just talk common sense, and they start at 12,000 and they're already past me, and they've got hardly any videos, and they only started a few months ago. And what can you do? But I'm just going to produce the content that I like producing. I've never been doing it for numbers. I've always been doing it because I want to convey what I want to convey and express myself and connect with some of you guys. And if I can help you, that's great. It's a relationship. I give, you give. But if I actually give of myself and produce content that's false just to get money, then I'm not being me. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. I'm not being honest. And then I won't get the honest relationship back. I think that's a large degree to why I have a really great sub base, and you guys are pretty cool, is because I think you guys get that I'm just being myself and I'm trying to have an honest conversation with you. I'm not trying to preach. I'm not trying to be a guru. I'm just trying to be, for some of you younger guys, an older guy. For guys my age, it's just another guy to hang out with and talk and shoot the breeze with. And I learn from you, you learn from me. Human, would you ever do another collab with Paul Elam? Sure. Just haven't done it for a while. Not intentionally. It's just life's gotten in the way, but I'm sure we both will if we ever have time and touch base or have anything especially specific we want to talk about. But Paul's great to talk to. I know that in the past, a lot of the guys in the manosphere have had problems with him. He might have said something. I wasn't ever aware of any of that. I got to know him and his channel later. And from the conversations I've had with the guys, with Paul Elam, I really like the guy. I respect what he does. He hasn't disrespected me. And I'll always defend him as a person, given my interaction with him. In the same way I defend my interaction with TFM. Him as a person, I think he's great. Every conversation I've had with him, being very respectful and so forth. Whatever anyone might think of a person's specific values, their lifestyle and so forth, I mean, who cares? If they treat you personally like crap, that's different. But just ask yourself also, if the person's civil and polite to you and you can have a live and let live attitude despite your differences, and you can have an intellectual discussion and you can get along, most importantly, why do they need to be a reflection of you? How fragile or empty are you that the only way you can communicate with someone is that if they're idealistically and religiously a complete reflection of you, and you guys can just repeat the same lines. You learn less that way as well. How do we give proper self-appraisal? I don't know. All my answers tend to come from self-reflection. So again, if you're honest with yourself, I think you can be more honest with appraising others or discerning what you hear from others or conversations with others. But if you're so self-absorbed, you're not going to want to have good conversations because you're just waiting to speak. You're just interested in yourself, or you've closed yourself off. Or if you're wanting validation, or you're too much of a people pleaser, you'll say anything. You'll mimic, you'll pattern other people just to be part of a conversation or a group. Again, it's being interested enough in yourself, in your own psychology, how you speak, being tired of what you've been doing till now. Try a different approach. Alpha Dog, thank you very much for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it, man. You guys that support me in my work, I really do appreciate it. I put it back into the channel, trying to make these things look good, trying to bring out more content. The more you guys can support me, of course, the more I'm going to try and support you by bringing out the content that hopefully you enjoy. This is another thing, like there's people, I'm going to say it, there's people that will kind of say, well, I'm shilling. I don't ask anyone to sort of say thank you with a donation, but I really appreciate it. I think a lot of problem with guys is that we have a problem with either asking for something or saying thank you and humbling ourselves in front of like, oh yeah, I need something, and like, I don't mind accepting something from someone, especially from men. It's like, I don't need anything. And then that transposes to relationships where we don't need anything from the female as well. We don't ask anything. We don't demand, like, I'm doing all this, I'm giving 200% and the female doesn't even give 5. It's, what am I doing it for? So similarly, if I didn't get the subs I had, if I didn't have the conversation and the feedback, and if guys didn't show me that my stuff was worth it and say, like, I want to buy you a beer, I want to talk to you, I let me give you some a story of some sort of wisdom of what I've learned in my experience related to the story and the video you've made, human, or a donation, that kind of giving back, whether it's to me or just comments. There's a lot of us guys being afraid to ask or be grateful for receiving anything, you know. I mean, I struggled for a long time in the last even decade. I'm still struggling sometimes with even my family members to even say simply the words, thank you, or I love you. You know, it's like, I don't need anything. I'm a rock. I don't need any affection. I don't need any comfort. I don't need to be given anything. But in today's society, especially when they discard you or don't care about you and outright hate you, having that stoic attitude gets you taken advantage of. You don't think much of yourself. If I can't accept you guys saying thank you to me in the form of contributions, helping me, if I'm trying to contribute a lot and providing you, whether it's just entertainment, and if you like my channel and you'd like me to give more, and some of you just say, oh, you know, in the light of that, here's a couple of dollars, have a beer, have a drink, I hope this helps. I'm grateful. And like in the past is like, no, I can't even say thank you. I can't even accept these things. So I think that's important too. So it's not so much that I want you guys to give me money, is that I really appreciate it. Donations, any kind of support, spreading the word of the channel, anything like that. Think about all the effort you've given and you just don't want anything in return, or you don't expect anything. It's like, no, I just give as a man. I resist anything coming back to me. I think that plays a lot to men's psychology of like, why am I discarded? I feel bad. Your instinct is telling you you need to accept as well, especially if you're contributing, especially if you're a good guy, especially if you're a giver, especially if you've got empathy and sympathy. But you're saying, oh, I don't need any empathy. I don't need any sympathy. Put your wallet away. I'll pay for everything. We need to get over that as well. Like I said, I'm grateful for any way you guys can support me and my channel. You don't have to, but I'm really grateful. In the same way, I'm grateful when I'm out with friends and they shout me a drink or shout me a meal, and I'll want to give something back later on next time as well. And I think that's what I'm trying to do with my videos to you guys. So anytime you guys throw me something as a thank you, I'm very grateful, because I've trained myself to learn how to say thanks and learn how to receive. Men's problem is we're just givers. We need to learn to be receivers. Because when you learn to be okay with receiving, then you'll start saying, hang on, what about me? If you resist receiving, you're going to be frustrated by the feeling of being used, yet always have the baseline of, I don't need anything. I never need to be refueled. I never need to be validated by something. I never need to be compensated by something. You can't just give, because you're going to burn out. And then you're going to be bitter and resentful. Part of, I think, men's frustration is they see how much women are just fine with receiving everything. They expect to get everything, and it's just normal. We're the opposite. We can't say yes to anything coming our way. We don't, like I said, I've found it hard a lot of times just to say thank you. It's like, oh no, I don't deserve it. I feel squeamish. You know, even when someone said, oh, human, you know, you're a good photographer, or I like how your videos look. Yeah, I don't know how to answer it. It's like you're ashamed of compliments. You're ashamed to receive anything. We need to get over that. And from that, you can actually stand up for actually getting what you deserve, or getting a little bit coming your way. Anyway, thank you for the support is what I'm saying. If I can support you, I'm happy to. If you can support me, I'm grateful. Armored Ghost, if you mix melted fat with whatever, okay. Do you get soap? Time of dying. Any tips for writing videos and starting a YouTube channel? I don't know, man. It depends on what you want to do. And what kind of content you want to do will kind of probably lean into how you do it, how you write, what you want to put together. Just start trying to create something, and you'll fumble around, tinker around, and then you'll find what you want to do. I didn't find my stride until I actually sat down and just tried to like pump out videos as best as I kind of could. It's basically a way of sitting down with a sketchbook and just doodling. And when the doodle's fine and it's showing what you want to show, don't be afraid to kind of put it out and publish it. And as time goes on, now that you've published and started a channel, start sort of refining it and polishing it. So just start. Good is better than perfect. Rodmo, why don't you ever touch the subject of politics in our daily lives? It has a lot to do with the way we live. It does, but a lot of people discuss politics. There's a lot of channels that discuss that. There's not many people that discuss the more personal topics. Because for me as well, if all you do is focus on the politics, and politics are connected to your personal life too, I don't disagree. But if all you think about is politics, there's an impotent aspect to it, because it's kind of like I'm living out there amongst politics, amongst feminism, amongst Trump, amongst environmentalism, amongst veganism, amongst whatever. And you're never addressing your health, your thinking. Address all that. Be a more well-rounded, stable person, and then with the excess of like what you can offer from that point, then you can actually probably offer more. But if you kind of go into politics as an empty person, you can be led around a lot because you're not thinking for yourself. You don't have a clearer vision of where you're standing in relation to politics. That's what I've seen. So again, there's enough channels out there dealing with politics. I don't think there's very many, especially with guys, trying to help them to think better. as individuals. But I don't see anything wrong with political discussion, though. I just don't have very much to say talking out there politically. If there's ways to talk politically in here, like, for instance, I remember when Monday had his channel on, when he talked about politics, it was always connected back and forth. It was a conversation with the personal as well, and how it related to the political, the broader subject. But not many people do that. I don't see much. It's convenient to just talk about what's over the horizon as well, because it's sort of like, it's almost like a virtue signaling with some people, where they go, look at me, I'm worried about the world. Look, I'm so great, I don't even care about myself. That's how great I am. Look, I'm tackling the bigger subject. That's fine. But when you ask them anything about their life, or you see the way they're living, how they're conducting themselves, their ethics and their morals, they really don't have much. They don't think about their daily life, how they interact with individuals, the conversations they have, the words they choose. And you think, politically, how are you going to contribute with the kind of individual person you are? If there's an individual, like, for instance, if you have a person like who speaks and acts like Jordan Peterson, who gets politically inclined and tries to affect something politically, fine. There's a lot of respect for that. But you get a lot of spurgs today that don't even like reading, that are trying to reach for the horizon and fix the world. That's the danger. Unintrospective, unintelligent people who don't care enough about their lives, but they'll tell you how you should be living your life. They're dangerous. Whoa, a lot of questions, a lot of jumping up and down. Real name's not given. When solving problems, do you like to talk to yourself aloud? No. It's always been sort of quiet introspection with me. I know some people do, or, when people say, oh, the voice speaking to you in your head, I've never actually had a voice. They've just been thoughts. So to me, it's like reading. I don't literally have a voice speaking to me. I'm looking and processing feelings and almost reading them. I'm thinking rather than listening to a voice, if that makes sense. But I don't talk out loud, no. Unless if I've thought something and then afterwards out loud, sometimes I go, Jesus, I'll just say a word to release an exclamation mark about what I've just thought about. That's about the only time I talk out loud, when I'm alone. Hey, how you going, man? Karu, here we go. I know this is going to be a good question. What is your list of red flags that immediately make you disengage from any sort of contact with that person? Told you it was going to be a good question. Red flags is when, if you're talking with them, I suppose, again, male or female, but especially with females, because I think men give females a pass because they're kind of anesthetized by just her in front of them. They don't really care about what she says. But if you don't listen to what she says, you can really miss a lot of what could be detrimental later on if you get with this person. But the red flags are, if in a conversation, you get the sense of you're talking and they're not listening. They're just waiting to speak again. I try and be mindful of that myself, because especially if I'm on a topic that I'm interested in, I can get on a rant of what I passionately want to talk about, and afterwards I feel bad. Like, for instance, a couple of nights ago, there was a few of us, including Karu, where I was chatting with Spetsnaz and Coltane as well, and Coltane was relaying a point about sort of the impacts of monetization with creating a YouTube channel. And it was as I was talking, and then afterwards I realized that I was just letting out my thoughts around the subject without actually really specifically addressing what Coltane was asking, and I felt awful because I wasn't really listening to his point. I'd engage it, so I was guilty of that in that situation. But my red flags are, the people aren't listening to what you're saying. That back and forth is a really good thing. They listen to you, and they ask questions back. If they ask you questions that flow along with the conversation, which show that they're being engaged, that they're seeing you, they're listening to you. Right now online, I think, especially if we don't look at each other, we're talking to ourselves. So it's easy not to listen to people. So exercising the muscle of conscious attention to someone else when they're speaking is a really good thing. So I would say that. There's the easy red flags that you can see from orbit, like, tattoos on her neck, someone who's a loudmouth, like the typical visual alpha Chad or the bimbo or things like that. They're easy, especially for someone who's a bit more intellectually curious, because you see that person coming, and then when they sit in front of you and start talking, you've already got a suspicious hand extended, and you're going, all right, I think I know what you're about. Prove me otherwise. Let me see if what I think about you, my stereotype, matches who you are. Often they do match the stereotype. What's refreshing is when they don't. But being conscious about the discussion, being conscious about what they say, and how you interact with them. But immediate red flags that make you disengage is rudeness, not caring about you, being self-absorbed, me, lack of empathy about you, especially if you open up about what your fears might be. That's a big one. I'm very aware of that. Most guys aren't. Like I said, most guys' default is, I don't need anything emotionally, structurally in my life. I'm here to provide. And I stoically, as a man, I'm going to be pat on my back by women and the world when I work myself to death and provide. That's how I'm loved. But if you can consciously be aware of your interaction with someone and being appreciated, by being appreciated or loved, by simply, if you show your vulnerability and someone gets their dagger out and doesn't care and disregards you or ignores you, if you're consciously being, and you'll know this, Karu, if you're being thoughtful to someone and patient and you're worried about them and they don't care, they don't get back to you, they don't care about your point of view, they don't see you being sympathetic and kind, they only care when you deny them what they're asking for. They only deny them when they think you owe them kindness or sympathy or time. But when you're showing that kind of stuff, they don't care. Just be aware of that. Again, I go back to learn to exercise the muscle as a guy that you need to receive things too. You're not just a giver. It's a two-way street. It's a conversation. You need to relate to the world and people around you for them to mean anything. We can't just talk about this stuff and then go on autopilot and just be givers. You don't respect yourself, neither do other people. But again, you shouldn't worry about what other people think. First, about yourself. Think about the people, the friends you get along with the best. There's a tennis match going back and forth. When you talk, they listen, vice versa. You learn from each other, you have trust, etc. If you're not getting that, especially with women, that's why I say treat women as much as you can like a friend. Do not allow yourself to open the gates of vulnerable romantic affection before you can trust her as a friend. Armored Ghost said, blue hair. Yeah, that's a good red flag. But there, aside from those, blue hair, a feminist tattoo on her neck, just a little things that are like there's certain things I remember in my past where anger, they have anger issues. You might think, ooh, feisty. No. Just kind of fill in the blanks, like how would that feistiness translate to an argument? How would her selfishness or you know, her sassiness, like you're in a restaurant, how she treats waiters, that people she doesn't know. Because, for instance, if she treats people she doesn't know, or if you treat people you don't need to treat well badly, or you get off on putting them down, that says a lot for me, especially with women, because if they're in front of me and they want to impress me, they can put on an act because they want me. I'm an object that they want. They selfishly want me. They don't care about me. They just want me as a selfish object. But a waiter, they don't care about at all. They don't naturally have a good heart. If they don't naturally, as a default, have a good heart, then it's easy for you to seemingly think that, oh, wow, she likes me, she treats me well. She treats everyone else like crap, but she treats me well. No. Guaranteed, when times are bad, when she's pushed to the wall and she doesn't get her way, when anger comes out, you're going to be treated like that waiter. That stuff's going to come out. And that's when you realize, yeah, I kind of knew she had that in her. Okay, we've been going for an hour and a half. Okay, let's hit the finish line, people. Red Pill Mentor, real name's not given. Himaraku is an interesting subject spoken of here. I think he's talking about the older generation of Japanese men working themselves to death. Victor Creed, men, are you keeping your testosterone high? Yeah, that's fairly good in terms of your health, gentlemen. But there also comes a side effect. Also, you tend to sort of be more horny. A lot of men experience it. So then again, you've got to keep your head about you too. All right, let me fly through these questions and we'll start wrapping this up. Real name's not given. What's your time worth to you? Exactly. What will you tolerate? What can you live with? How much do you throw your time away? All right, guys. Thank you for the donation, Wet Pallet Warrior. His question is, paying my tuition, human, thank you. Thanks for getting me into journal writing and for providing regular food for thought. This is becoming a great forum for men, blah, blah, blah. Men where steel sharpens steel in the area of ideas and introspection. Yep, exactly. Us talking to each other in a world where we're ignored, disliked, we're encouraged not to speak to each other, we're isolated. We should be talking intelligently with each other and helping each other out. So thank you. Smear Beer, do I know if Blue Monday's coming back? I don't know, man. I wish he would selfishly, but if he's enjoying his life, that's all that matters. Let him have a good life if he doesn't want to do it anymore. Why don't women get humour? By Dunstan. I think they like humour in men because it kind of somehow unconsciously makes life safer. This guy's laughing at life. He's in control. I don't have to worry as much. That's why we don't need women to laugh at us, because we don't need them to make life safer for us. We're the ones that need to make life safer for ourselves. Hey, Lestat, you made it. We're almost finished. Anyway, people, I hope I've answered everybody's question. If I didn't, leave it below this video when it's published, and I'll try and address it in the next live stream. But thank you very much for joining. And this was a good one. For some reason, I like these ones in the morning when the sun's out. I like doing the nighttime ones where I can sort of connect with more people in the US, because most of my audience is from the US. but at the end of the day, you're a bit tired too, but I enjoy doing them anyway, and you get a bit of a different look. It's always dark in my studio at the nighttime ones. I actually like that look, but having to adjust my light and getting this to look good and color grade this for daytime is challenging, but I enjoy it. Thanks for the donation, LT, as well. I really appreciate it, guys. I appreciate you catching up. I appreciate the donations and the support. Keep subscribing, hit the bell icon, all that boring, stupid stuff that I had to say. But it helps grow my channel so I can keep up with some of the bimbos out there who are probably making $500,000 just on ad revenue a year. So anyway, thank you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.